Psychopath. From the Intergalactic Journal of Mechanics and Biology. The human brain is designed to run based on a set of complex backup systems. For example, not all aspects of visual perception are located in the same area. If one aspect of the visual system is destroyed, other aspects may still function. This makes it difficult to completely disable a single sensory aspect by damaging cortical tissue. However, the complexity of these backup systems in the human brain means that the slightest malfunction can cause a massive ripple effect throughout the entire brain. An imbalance in neurotransmitter chemicals can lead to system-wide catastrophic failures, resulting in conditions like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and more. Additionally, improper neural connections can cause ripple effects in behavior. For instance, a defective connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala can lead to unsettling outcomes. Though our understanding is still limited, human studies have linked such defects to antisocial personality disorder, which can be subdivided into sociopathy and psychopathy. Focusing on psychopathy, we find that a disconnect between the frontal lobe and the amygdala results in a lack of empathy and absence of fear. A human psychopath often engages in extreme risky and criminal activities because they do not experience fear, worry, or guilt, which are sensations that typically keep individuals within the bounds of social law. While many psychopaths do not become violent and prefer high-risk business careers, when they do engage in criminality, the results can be catastrophic. With a lack of fear and empathy, a human psychopath may see no issue with committing violent crimes against their own species. As far as we know, there is no reliable way to detect a human psychopath on short notice. However, those with experience suggest that, due to their heightened animalistic instincts, another human may feel uneasy when confronted with one. Although this method is not always accurate, it is advisable to be cautious if several humans exhibit unease around one of their own species. Krill stood silently next to Captain Veer as the ship's cargo ramp was lowered onto the dusty ground below. A cloud of red dust plumed into the air, revealing a wide expanse of flat, red rock broken only by the occasional hill and a windswept concrete structure surrounded by security fences and guarded posts. Below them, a dusty red jeep, a human vehicle, sat covered in a thick layer of red dust. "Remind me again why we would take on such a risky mission," Krill asked quietly, glancing nervously at the group of 4 guards and 1 prisoner standing quietly outside the vehicle. Captain Veer laughed shortly, his prosthetic foot clanking against the metal of the cargo ramp as he took his first step forward. "It can't be that risky," he began. "It's just a prisoner transport." Krill clattered onto the ramp after him, making sure to stay behind the safety of the captain's larger form. "Besides," the captain muttered, "no one else is willing to risk dealing with a human prisoner, so the Galactic Assembly contacted us personally." Krill didn't find that explanation satisfying but gave up trying to understand as they made their way to the bottom of the ramp. The captain showed no worry, making his way straight up to the group of guards. A few of the crew members clattered down the stairs behind them. As ordered by the Galactic Assembly, the human prisoner was restrained with proper human restraints, including ankle chains, wrist manacles, and a belly chain, all connected together to reduce his movement. Additionally, his mouth and nose were covered by a clear plastic spit shield. The human didn't appear worried or agitated in the slightest. In fact, his posture was rather relaxed as he waited in the scorching desert sun. Oddly, Krill noted the stiffness of the human guards' bodies and the watchfulness of their eyes. They were agitated, while the prisoner was not. Krill couldn't see why. The human was perfectly calm. Captain Veer ignored these signs as well, exchanging a few words with the guard in charge before the man handed over a cream-colored file. The captain appeared perplexed by something the man said but brushed it off a moment later and motioned for the group to head towards the ship. The guards complied, marching the prisoner up the ramp and into the cargo bay. Krill followed Captain Veer, relieved to be out of the heat which had already sapped much of his energy. "We leave him in your capable hands," the guard captain said. "Just remember what I told you, and you should have no problems." Captain Veer gave a short nod, and the man backed out of the cargo bay. As soon as he did, Krill noticed the man's posture straighten as if a heavy weight had been lifted off his shoulders. By the look on his face, you would have thought he had just returned from battle. Captain Veer barked an order, and the ramp gave a metallic hiss, closing behind them and finally blocking the oppressive heat radiating inwards from the desert moon. Captain Veer turned just then, hissing in surprise. Krill turned and paused to find that the other human, the prisoner, had moved silently forward until the two men were nose to nose. The entire cargo bay had gone quiet, and Krill watched in confusion as all the blood drained from the captain's face. The prisoner chuckled and stepped back, a wide smile visible through the spit shield. The color was suddenly replaced by a wash of red, and the captain stepped forward again, right into the prisoner's space. Krill stepped back in shock. He had never seen such a primitive overt manifestation of dominance from the captain. Whatever had just happened had caused an almost primal reaction. "Threaten me again, and that chain goes around your neck," the captain hissed, looming a good 2 inches over the prisoner. Despite the show of dominance, the prisoner remained smiling, his posture relaxed. There was no fear in his eyes. Despite this, the captain stood his ground as the man was dragged towards the brig by a group of 4 other humans. As soon as the man left the room, the captain's face drained again, and he stepped back, looking almost sick. One hand moved to rub the opposite arm. That hand was shaking. Krill stepped forward. "Captain, are you all right?" The man gave a confused shake of his head. "Yeah, I think so. I don't know, that man just, makes my skin crawl." Krill glanced down at the captain's dermal layer but found nothing untoward. The captain must have noticed. A figure of speech, Krill. "He bothers me," the look in his eyes, As it turned out, the captain wasn't the only one to be so affected. Other members of the crew reported similar, though varying, levels of uneasiness. Krill found the idea both fascinating and chilling. What about such a diminutive human could create such a visceral reaction in the crew? While the captain had responded to the man with increased dominance, a few of the other humans refused to be in the same room with him. Others left his presence shaking, and one or more of the crew members demanded that the captain release him immediately for someone else to take care of. Though the captain looked inclined to agree, he was forced to admit there were no other options. Krill tried to understand it, but the answers he received were mostly the same. There was something about the prisoner that caused the other humans to respond as if they were in close proximity to one of their own Earth predators. As far as Krill knew, there wasn't much that could scare a human, but this was something altogether different. A few times, he took to watching the prisoner through the cameras in his cell, but as far as Krill could tell, there was nothing so different about him. He seemed relatively calm and well-behaved for a human. He barely talked, and aside from his first interaction with the captain, he had not made any overtly dominant attempts. Chained only with handcuffs, the human switched between sleeping and resting with his back to the floor, staring up at the ceiling. Once, accompanying the captain to feed the prisoner, Krill learned just how unnerving the new human could be. The captain had just slid the tray through the bars when, suddenly, the man was right there. The captain took a step back in shock. The look on the other human's face was unnaturally focused, eyes narrowed in concentration, mouth turned in a wide grin. "Good morning, Captain," the man began. The tone of his voice was pleasant enough, though Krill noted the same visceral reaction from the captain, whose mouth twitched in disgust, hands balling defensively into fists. "What do you want?" he snapped. "Oh, come now, Captain. I just wanted to make a friendly greeting to someone who has graciously taken care of me." Krill watched as the man eyed the captain up and down, his expression almost hungry as he did so. "You can take your thanks and shove them up your ass," the captain growled. The man frowned. "Such an aversion to someone you know nothing about. I know you're a psycho. Don't need a degree to tell you that," he growled quietly. "Come on, Krill," the captain snapped, marching them out into the hall and slamming the door behind him. Captain Veer must have seen the reaction on his face, for he stopped and gave a sigh. Sometimes people just make you feel wrong. It's like evil becomes a physical sensation, crawling around inside you like a bucket of maggots. Krill shook his head in disgust. No wonder they were so averse to the stranger. Veer sighed. "I read the man's file about a day ago, should never have agreed to this mission. Wouldn't have if I had known what he'd done." "And what did he do?" The captain eyed Krill for a long moment before sighing. "You know, humans are a very aggressive race. We are a species of extremes, and while there is good, there is evil, and that man broke one of the 2 greatest taboos in human society." "And what are those?" Krill asked nervously. The two are cannibalism and incest. Krill gave a little squeak of horror upon hearing the definitions of the two words. He even took a step back from the captain, horrified that a species could even be capable of such behavior. The captain held out a hand. "I said it's taboo, Krill." Meaning normal people are disgusted by it. Krill swallowed hard. "And which one did he do?" Veer gave a short hiss. When they caught him, they also found the remains of at least 5 separate people. When they couldn't find the rest, he admitted to cooking them up and eating them. If Krill could have been sick, he would have. Psychopathy was a new word for Krill, and he quickly learned the meaning just a day out from the last station when accompanying the captain to move the prisoner. Despite their distrust, they shouldn't have grown so complacent. They should have left on the proper restraints. Instead, they had chained him by one hand to the bars while they cleared his cell. The captain was replacing the bedding when it happened. A loud snap and a roar of pain. Krill turned to find the prisoner rushing towards him. One of his hands had been mangled beyond recognition. The man had broken his own thumb to slip it from the cuffs. Krill was knocked out of the way, thrown violently against the wall where he lay dazed and confused. The thing that had knocked him aside barreled past and slammed into the prisoner. The captain and the prisoner were tossed to the ground in a heap of thrashing limbs and fists. Krill curled back in terror. The captain gave a scream, and Krill turned away mortified as the prisoner came up for air, his grin dripping with blood. More solid striking noises. A desperate fight. Krill peered out from behind his cowering limbs just in time to see the captain demonstrate a human phenomenon he had heard about but never seen. He lifted the prisoner from his chest and hurled him back. So powerful was the throw that the other man slammed into the wall feet away. He was up in seconds, pinning the man back against the wall as teeth snapped inches from his neck. Krill could hear voices from the other side of the door. But it was too late, the captain had already made his decision. The knife appeared in his hand a moment later. Krill had never seen a human fight before, much less death. But he watched the knife vanish and then reappear, covered in blood, first once, then twice, then 3 times. Blood gurgled from the prisoner's mouth in a sputtering laugh. He collapsed to the floor, and the captain staggered away, hands covered in blood. He eyed the corpse long after the heart had failed. The door was thrown open moments later. Men rushed in. They moved towards the captain and the fallen corpse. Trying to get close, the captain jerked away, hands over his face, slowly backing away from the other humans. He backed over to the wall next to Krill and slid down. His face was pale, eyes wide, nothing like his attacker. His skin appeared clammy and cold. A lot of species are afraid of humans, but oddly enough, Krill knew the truth. Humans weren't scary in general. They were protective and aggressive, but they were honest and friendly. Humans were made to adapt well in social environments, they were good companions to have. Humans that couldn't perform socially were immediately ostracized and rejected by other humans. This is why psychopathy is so profoundly disturbing. The intentional rejection of proper social action makes other humans uncomfortable and even aggressive. It's a primitive response, but useful when you want to know who is and is not dangerous. The end.